Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there. Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there.
My name is Richard Ferrer, and I can say I am cloud hired.
That yes, come and join and get cloud hired. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
Hey, Go Cloud Architect family. I'm cloud hired.
Well, I'm cloud hired, guys.
So I'll just say I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired thanks to Go Cloud Architects.
It worked for me, and now I'm cloud hired.
Because of Google Architect program, I am cloud hired.
See! I am cloud hired. Thank you, Mike and the GlowCloud team.
Hey everybody, welcome to another session of Q&A with us at GoCloud Careers. My name is Chris Johnson. I am the Chief Operating Officer here And looks like there's a bit of a lag on my end. I'm sorry about that. But I've got Mike Gibbs. He is our founder and CEO at Go Cloud Careers. And I've got Alonzo Coleman here with me. He's our chief of content. So I want to thank everybody for being here today. And just take a few minutes to let everybody come in. We've got about an hour to be with all of you today. So just to give everybody an idea of what we're doing here, we're answering any questions that you might have about the cloud architect career, the cloud engineer career. What is a cloud architect? What is a cloud engineer? What is how to become a cloud architect? Where to find good cloud architect courses or cloud engineer courses? What you need to know for the cloud architect job or the solution architect job. Anything that you can think of related to cloud careers, we're here to try and answer for you. Our specialty is working with architects and engineers to an extent, but mostly architects, and getting them to their dream career and earning the pay that they deserve. So again, if you've got any questions about the cloud architect job in general, what to do as far as preparing for it, what you need to actually learn, what cloud architects actually do. There's lots of misinformation and lots of confusion out there. So that's why we're here to try and clarify any of your questions. So before we get started and while we wait for some questions to come in, I want to make sure that everybody is aware of a couple of things. So this week we've got our Cyber Monday sale. Sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to cut off your head. We'll cut off Alonzo's head. So we've got our Cyber Monday sale this week. It is through the end of the week. You can get 35% off of our Cloud Architect Career Development Program Plus. And that's also eligible on the payment plans for the program. So make sure to take advantage of that. It's the lowest price that this program will ever be again. Unfortunately, costs are increasing, expenses on our end are increasing. So we're going to be having to make some adjustments to our pricing. And so this is going to be for the foreseeable, it'll be at this price for a little bit longer. But with this discount, it won't be any better than it is now. So make sure to take advantage of this. And you get, with this Cloud Architect Career Development Plus program, not only do you get access to hundreds of hours worth of content, a great Slack community, and you also get access to 3 live classes a week. So for the price of the equivalent of 2 days of pay for an average cloud architect, you get access to 3 live classes a week. And those are classes that are taught by industry experts like Mike. We've got a big data architect in Praveen that's working at JP Morgan Chase that comes in and teaches some classes. We've got a networking expert at Imran that comes in and teaches for us. And then we've got myself and Alonzo and several PhD professors that we work with to do our soft skills and leadership training. So there's no other place that you can get this for the price that we're offering it. So make sure to take advantage of that while it's available. Now, if you want to learn more about what we do and how we prepare people for the cloud architect role, you can register for our How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar, and that link is in the should be in the description or in the chat box. Looks like I need to put these in the chat box. I thought somebody was putting these in the chat box. So give me just a second. So that's, make sure to register for the webinar so that if you've got any questions about how we prepare and how we train, we can answer any of your questions there for you. So let me put the link for the Cyber Monday discount in the chat box as well. Sorry about that. All right, so I've got the link for the webinar and the Cyber Monday discount there in the chat box. All right, so let's get started. Let's get to our first question. Let's see. All right, so we've got a question from Rahul. Can I choose to become cloud architect if I'm from the printing industry? I'm always interested in tech. I think cloud is the right way to start my journey into tech. So, Alonzo, you want to start off? Do they need any previous experience in tech to get a cloud architect role?
Raul, that is a resounding no. You do not need prior experience. You don't need prior tech experience. You don't need to know how to code. You don't need any of that. All we need is your determination, your ability to be coachable, your ability to want to learn new things and drive yourself, because this is a rigorous course. We will we'll start you off at the beginning from the bottom up and do a full end-to-end education, if you will, on tech, how to present tech, and ultimately how to sell the tech. So don't worry, don't feel intimidated, don't feel like you need to have any prerequisites, especially when it comes to any certifications. Just bring your desire and we'll take care of the rest.
And, I'm just going to add to that, we have examples every day. Daniel Bosu, working at JP Morgan Chase, never worked in tech before. Jennifer, working at JP Morgan Chase, no tech before. Ivan Tamba, AWS, never worked in tech before. Coyote at AWS, never worked in tech before. Delroy Batt, never worked in tech, and we got him his first solution architect job. We've got countless examples. If you have the right job, the right training, and the right skills, yeah, you'll get hired. But if your experience is hands-on configuration and anything and certification, no, you will not. But if you know the architect job the way we teach it, and that's why our training is 500 hours versus the nonsense that's in just a silly AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, which is the name of the service and how to configure it, which has nothing to what we do as architects, which is design, present, and sell. Yes, you can easily get hired with no experience, and we have students doing it every single day. You can see a whole bunch of them on our website, but it's only a small percentage.
All right, so our next question comes from Up and Up. Great to see everyone here. Can you please help me understand what is the difference between post-sale and pre-sale architect, and what is more common? I'm not the expert in this area.
I'll address this one because I knew where it was going. So Up and Up, there's two kinds of architects. There's at least 50% of them that work for a company: Cisco, Microsoft, AWS, Google, you name the company, Palo Alto. Everybody's got a cloud, okay? And they work with a customer. They ask the customer about their business goals, pain points, and challenges, evaluate their current systems, design a solution, and sell it back to them. It's a pre-sales architect. A post-sales architect does kind of the same thing. Let's say you work at JP Morgan Chase Bank or Bank of America or, I don't care, Target. It doesn't matter. And what you do is you ask the executives in that business, what are your business goals, business pain points, and business challenges? They tell you. Then you have your team baseline the organization systems, and then you create a design. You present your design back to the department heads. You present your design back to the C-level executives, and you sell them on why they need that design. And then once it's done, you order the design, and either the vendor actually does the implementation for you, or your cloud engineer is working in your company to do the implementation. So no matter where you work, it's design, present, and sell. It's whether you're selling to external customers or internal management.
I'm muted, sorry. What's the prerequisite for a cloud architect? Willingness and desire to learn. That's what I would say is the prerequisite. Mike or Alonzo, what would you say is the prerequisite for a cloud architect?
I couldn't underscore it better. You again, based on the original question that I answered, the prerequisite is your determination. You have to be coachable. You have to be willing to work in teams. You have to be willing to, if nothing else, have the courage to communicate within a group audience, to be able to learn how to articulate your thoughts, be able to work on your challenges as well as emphasize your strengths. That is what those are the prerequisites. Outside of that, just understanding, and this would be a different conversation, is that any internships or any prerequisites on that vein, that's a whole conversation. But with that being said, the focus is just being willing to learn and start becoming a cloud architect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like asking, are there prerequisites for doctors or prerequisites for airplane pilots? No. You go to the right school and you get hired when you're done. Now, I'm going to tell you this right now, Gurish. If you think certification is going to get you these jobs, then you're going to need to waste 10 years of your life working at the bottom and working your way up. And here's the reason. Certification is the name of the service and how to configure that service. Now, here's the thing, Gurish. Architects don't configure anything. And if you walk into a customer and talk about Elastic Compute Cloud, you're going to be fired and escorted out of that building in about 30 seconds. Because when you use marketing terms, what happens is the customers think you've got an initiative, and then they don't want to listen to anything you have to say. So if you've got the right business acumen, the right sales skills, the right leadership skills, the right executive presence, the right emotional intelligence, and the network and data center design skills, which is the cloud, and the cloud skills, meaning design, then you're going to get hired with no experience, just like our students do every single day. But if your plan is certification, yes, it's going to take you 10 years to get there. And you may never get there with that anyway. For example, we train lots of cloud engineers that have 5 and 10 years experience that want to become architects. We take software developers that have been in the field for 20 years and have to retrain them to be architects. The thing is, an architect is not a techie. They are not engineers. They are people that design, present, and sell a technology solution to solve a business problem. That's why people get it mixed up and think they have prerequisites. And what they find out, sadly, is they've done all this engineering. They apply for an architect job, and they're like, yeah, so even today, someone sent me, I'd like to work for you. I've got lots of experience in DevOps. And I said, DevOps is an architecture. We could train you, but I can't hire you because you basically told me you know somebody else's job. So if you learn to be a great architect, you'll get hired. We can train you and you'll be a great architect. Or you can attend our webinar tomorrow and we'll tell you everything you need to learn with us or with somebody else.
All right. I want to start off the answer on the next question. So the next question is from Zex Marquise. AWS is pushing their serverless techs really hard at their show. Should we continue to strive for independent services such as Kafka versus Aurora? So it's not surprising that AWS was pushing AWS stuff at AWS's conference. That's like saying McDonald's is trying to convince me to buy a Big Mac while I'm at McDonald's and not a Whopper. Or, Ford is trying to convince me to buy a Ford instead of a Saab or a Chevy or a Mercedes-Benz when I go to the Ford dealership. It's in AWS's best interest as a company and as a business to push their products and promote their products and their services to potential customers. So the first part's not surprising. The second part is, yes, you should continue to strive for being familiar. I don't know what you mean exactly by the second part, but being familiar and knowing how to use independent services and how they would fit into designs and solutions for your potential customers. Yes, you need to know the cloud. AWS is not the cloud, just like McDonald's is not the hamburger. AWS is a cloud. It is a version of the cloud. They have parts and pieces to make a cloud, but they're not the cloud. So you want to learn the cloud, you want to be familiar with the cloud, and then you can be more successful. So again, back to the original point, it's AWS's week. This is their week, their convention, their speakers, their products, their services. It's great for them. It's great for lots of people, great for lots of businesses, but that it's not surprising that they're pushing their services. It's their conference.
Right.
So Mike or Alonzo, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
I'm going to add a little here. So Zex, what if I could recommend a system that if you used it, it pretty much precluded you from using multiple clouds or doing any kind of innovation off of AWS. So Zex, when I was young, I was a paramedic and I used to work with the police a lot. And they used to tell me drug dealers would give free samples of highly addicted drugs to people. And then a week later, the people would be buying the stuff. So to me, it's like drug dealer mentality. I'm going to recommend something that you can never leave. Now, if you use the virtual machine by comparison or a Kubernetes cluster and AWS raises your rates 30%, Azure, here I come. But if you use these proprietary services and AWS raises your rates 30% or kicks you out like they kick Parler and basically put them out of business, you're going to spend millions and millions of dollars to reconfigure your applications to work for another cloud. So when it comes to innovation, I try not to use proprietary things that cause vendor lock-in and basically make me a prisoner of that. Any thoughts, Alonzo?
I agree. I believe it's it's a bit of indoctrination, if you will. Like Chris said, it's like if I'm trying to sell my wares, I don't want to introduce competition for comparative analysis. I don't want to showcase any type of weaknesses or any type of inefficiencies that may be shown against someone else's software, cyberware, or any other technical construct. So it's just all about AWS. It's all about them. It's a bit of a parade, if you will, about what they can do for the technology industry. And it's not going to be an opportunity for you to see the greater horizon of what all tech can do, especially for organizations who may not subscribe to AWS or their services, as all companies or those that should be focused on multi-cloud solutions.
All right, so let's find our next question here. Make sure there's not a follow. Okay, looks like it's 2 parts. All right. Okay. 2 parts. Mr. Dominic says, I'm a recent computer science graduate who starts working as a Java software engineer. During my studies, I founded my own little startup in order to get customer experience early. I would like to combine my technical background with customer interaction. Is therefore the solution architect path a valid option for me?
Well, Mr. Dominic, let me explain this to you. If we trained you, you could be an easy solution architect, like Delroy Batt, who never worked in tech, like Daniel Bosu, who never worked in tech, like Jennifer, who never worked in tech. I want to tell you right now, Mr. Dominic, we architects never touch the technology. We do no software and no Java. What do we do as architects? We take the stuff from a network and data center and move it to the cloud, which is a virtual network and data center. So virtual machines, containers, firewalls, storage area networks, databases, business applications like CRP, ERM applications. And it's not just customer interaction. You need to know how to build a business case, how to build a return on investment capital model, how to sell to the CXO level suite, how to present at conferences, because this is what we do. But as architects, we don't touch the tech. 50% of our day is spent in meetings. About 25% of our time is spent documenting. And the remaining time is like entertaining clients with the corporate credit card and such. So, Mr. Dominic, of course you could become a cloud architect. And we train many people with a tech background. But when people have a tech background, they need to be completely retrained to be an architect, because knowing how to code has nothing to do with me. For example, like if Chris said to you, if Chris was the CEO of a $100 billion company, which is pretty normal for CEOs, and he said, look, our error defect rate is 6.7%. And if we can cut our error defect rate through some types of communication and collaboration technology, we could add $2 billion of additional revenue. What can you do as a solution architect to solve that problem? No, there's no Java. No, there's no hands-on configuration. There's no Python. There's no Terraform. You need to literally go back to your team. We teach you how to do this in our program. Find the right engineers, the right architects to design the solution. Bring in the security architects for the security, the network architects for the networking piece. Our job is the care coordinator. It's kind of like the quarterback on the football field that I'm told basically manages the care. I used to practice internal medicine where basically people would come to me for normal stuff. And if they needed a cardiologist, I'd send them there, or a neurologist, I'd send them there. We are basically the coordinator of taking the business requirements from the customer and translating them into the solution. And Mr. Dominic, 1, 2, 3, we can easily train you and get you to become a cloud architect. Likewise, we've had mental health techs that became cloud architects, medical professionals like nurses who became cloud architects, waiters and waitresses that have become cloud architects, landscapers who have become cloud architects. Now, you have a technical background, which is nice. It's a different kind of technical background, but we can always leverage whatever experience you have and translate it into good things. But understand you're going to need training, and that's okay. It's going to be training.
All right. So let's see. Our next question is from Yoshi. So great to see you guys live. I'm new to your channel. My question is how to prepare and get the business case for on-prem to cloud migration and data center refresh. I'm not sure. I mean, that's what we do in our training program.
Yes.
That's what we do on a regular basis in our Cloud Architect Career Development Program. Other than an actual training program or a cohort such as ours, I'm not sure where you would be able to get that, because you would have to have somebody that's familiar with that experience and that situation, such as the people like Mike that we have doing our classes, and Praveen and Imran and others. You would have to have people that are familiar with that to be able to provide the guidance and expertise to design the solutions. So I could be wrong, Mike or Alonso. How are you reading that?
Mr. Joshi, let me explain this to you. I learned it because I spent about $75,000 to learn these skills. Here's how you learn to build a business case. You either take a course like ours where we train you, where you get an MBA, and then when you're done your MBA, where they teach you how to build return on investment capital models, you take some specialized training like we do. Now, I know that the average person can't afford $75,000 to learn these business school things. And that's why we have 4 MBAs in our training program and 2 PhD business schools professors in our program, plus 2 additional people with master's degrees. We have an economics professor with a master's degree and somebody else with another master's degree. So effectively, the people that are teaching in our program have 6 master's degrees plus 2 PhDs in business. So you could get it from an MBA program if you chose. They will teach you how to build a business case, or you can get it from us. I want to make sure you know how to get it in either case, but this stuff is not taught in certification because you're going to have to look at the organization's weighted average cost of capital, for example. And by doing this, you're able to determine whether it makes sense to buy as a capital expense through financing or a one-time purchase, whichever is cheaper, versus rent on the cloud. And then you're going to have to look at, the utilization of the systems, because in some cases, if they're heavily utilized, it's much cheaper in the data center. But if they're sparsely utilized in auto scaling kind of things, they're better on the cloud. So it takes a lot of training in that, and it takes a lot of business knowledge. And that's why these jobs aren't certification based. But we could train you, and we'd love to in our program, which basically costs a single day's pay for the average architect, or you could get an MBA from somewhere, and they will teach you that component on how to build a business case.
All right. So I'm not sure how well we'll be able to answer the next question, but we can give it a shot. I've got 2 parts. So what do you offer for people already in the field but want to acquire specific skills? I need instructor-led classes, not a bunch of videos to watch. I am a system engineer. The company I work for is now going cloud, and I need the skills to support that. So,
well, I was a systems engineer, and I can tell you my manager had this conversation with me. It was about 20 years ago, and I had a really good systems engineering job. I was being paid about $150,000 a year. And my manager had basically determined everybody needed a CISSP. Well, actually, so there were like 5,000 of us in the company that all went to get the CISSP boot camp that week. And I fell asleep on it. And when I fell asleep on it, my manager, tapped me on the shoulder, yanked me to his room, and I was expected to be disciplined. And he said, Michael, I'm having this conversation with you because you're not the average systems engineer. And he proceeded to say, Mike, do you know the difference between a $300,000 solution architect or enterprise architect, network architect, or a distinguished engineer versus a $150,000 systems engineer? And I said, tell me. He said, it has nothing to do with the tech. He said, it has everything to do with the impact you make to your customers, which is related to your communication skills, your executive presence, your leadership skills, your business acumen, your presentation skills, your ability to write thought leadership document and present at conferences and be better. Well, About $100,000 of training later, I was that enterprise architect earning the kind of salaries that he told me about 20 years ago. So we have live classes in our training programs 3 times per week. And what do we teach in this program? Architecture, plus all those business skills that cost me over $100,000 to actually learn. Now we do this because, you know, there are architect jobs and we can share a picture that pay $800,000 a year, but they're all based upon business skills. So we teach the technical skills in our program. And how do we do our things? Because we don't believe watching videos is training either. What we do is we have 3 live classes on Zoom per week, and they're live and interactive. And then in between live classes, we do have people watch videos and then they turn them in. They do video presentations, they do writing things, they turn them in, and they get feedback on it. And then we do a lab component, and they're not silly AWS lab because that's not going to get anybody hired. Yes, we do 20 or 25 of them, so we can say we did it. We do about 20 to 25 of them on Azure as well, but we do real labs. Like, if you ask most people what is cloud computing, they don't know. Our students build an actual cloud, I mean from scratch, so that any one of my students could build AWS from scratch or Google from scratch. So that's how we do it. We do live training combined with on-demand training and projects that are real projects, presentations, and we give you feedback on it. Because I don't believe that just watching videos is the key to learning anything. I think you got to participate and be coached and give feedback along the way. You guys want to add to that?
I think we said it eloquently. It's not a bunch of videos. We have plenty of live action classes to support various business cases, team building, along with you having an opportunity to do real world exercises that cloud engineers, cloud architects do. So it's, you know, anyone could just press the play button and take your money. That's not what we do here.
No. Would never just do that.
Let's see. All right, next question is from Bliss. Mike, thank you and your team for the good job you are doing. What is your advice for accepting the first cloud job as a remote job? Most jobs are remote jobs these days. So, I don't see why you wouldn't want to. I mean, me personally, if I had the opportunity to do a job locally, I would like to do it. But that's just me personally, because I come from the hospitality industry where I was around people all day, every day. So that's just me. But most, I mean, especially in this field, most jobs are going to be remote or hybrid in a way, at the very least. So, Mike, do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, my advice is take it. If you're getting an offer and it's a job, take it. I mean, the reality is, as a solution architect, you're not going to go to the office every day. I mean, you may to collaborate with others, but you're going to be visiting clients. It's a customer-facing role. So no matter where you're at, you're going to be remote in these jobs in some way, shape, or form. The only time I actually ever got to stay in an office was when I worked in New York City. I got to go to the office once a week, and the rest of the time I was at my customer site. So at least those days, I did make it to the office once a week. The remaining part of my career, I just worked from home and traveled to the customers, wherever they may be.
We can't hear you, Chris.
That's just because I'm talking to myself. All right, so I got a couple of questions here from Paul that tie into each other. So Paul says, is it easy or hard to switch from a GCP solution architect role to AWS or vice versa at the mid-senior level? And is the Cloud Architect Career Development Program a good course for solution architect? So I'll let Mike start this one.
So Paul, if you truly know the cloud, and you truly know the cloud, you can go from one cloud provider to the other in a day's notice. How easy is it? Well, if you wanted to paint your house with white walls, right? You could go to the Benjamin Moore paint shop, the Porter Paints paint shop, the Sharon Williams paint shop, Home Depot, Lowe's, and you're buying white paint. So Paul, if you truly understand the cloud like my students do, you know that a virtual machine is the same as an EC2 instance, an Azure virtual machine, or a Google Engine compute instance. And if you truly understand that object storage and how it works, it doesn't matter whether you're working with object storage in the data center, object storage within Nutanix Cloud, OpenStack Cloud, Microsoft Cloud, Google Cloud Storage, or AWS S3. It's the same technology. So you can pretty much look at a cloud as a data center that's virtualized. And a good cloud architect like mine, they get offers at AWS, Azure, Google, Apple. They're working everywhere. It doesn't matter. JP Morgan Chase, because it's the same job. So if you know the cloud. Now, Paul, imagine driving a car and being told this is an elastic vector angular changer. And all you learned was how to configure, which cloud architects don't do. And then somebody else had a cloud-based angle manipulator. And then somebody else had something, let's call it a steering wheel. If you like Microsoft, they usually use normal names. If you actually knew it was a steering wheel and you learned how to drive, you could drive any cloud. So it's nothing to switch. Now, how is it to pass the certification exam? About 2 years ago, the only cloud I never touched was Google. And I basically just took the Google exam cold with 2 days preparation, and I finished it in 45 minutes because the Google Professional Cloud Architect exam was nothing because I knew the cloud. So that's the key between, now, if I didn't know the cloud, that exam would have taken me 6 months. So the key is if you're a real cloud architect like we train, you can go from AWS to Azure to Google to Alibaba to Nutanix to OpenStack in a day. There's nothing to learn. It's the same technology. If your training is certification-based, name of the service and how to configure that service, well, you're going to need to be completely retrained because you don't know what's going on under the hood anyway. And if you don't know what's going on under the hood, you can't be a cloud architect or a solution architect anyway. You can be a cloud engineer, not even a cloud admin. So yes, Paul, we get people hired at every single cloud provider through our training. It is nothing to go from one cloud to another cloud because what are you doing? You're going to move over 10,000 virtual machines. Okay. You're going to move over object storage, block storage, file storage. Okay, same thing. You're not going to be using, in most cases, if it matters, any of these silly things like DynamoDB or Microsoft Cosmos or Google Cloud Bigtable. Why? Because they're proprietary. You're going to be using MongoDB or Apache Cassandra in a multi-cloud environment. Yeah, our program could get you hired. We've got students getting hired every single day between $120,000 and $287,000. That's our average salary. Normal people with no experience average out around $150,000 to $160,000. And it's nothing to go from one cloud to the other if you're properly trained. We have students getting hired. They're working at CDW. They're getting offers at Deloitte, Accenture, and Microsoft and AWS all at the same time because they're properly trained. So know the cloud, not a cloud. You can work anywhere. We'd love to train you and see a cloud hired in a really great role.
All right. So next question is from B. Spence. Let's see. How does an architect stay current with evolving relative technology or business needs?
Well, business needs, you're going to be interacting with your customers. You're going to be following the financial channel, reading things like The Economist. The technology, AWS, the only AWS term that I like is reinvent. And the reason I love the term reinvent is B. Spencer, everything they have on AWS is 20 years old. For example, I saw a beautiful press release. We now allow IPsec over direct connection. Cisco did that in 1998. An EC2 instance was developed by VMware in 1999. Object storage, S3, which AWS calls is cool, 30 to 40-year-old technology. VPC flow logs, exciting, right? Cisco had it in 2000. So what you're seeing is the cloud is basically the new network and the new data center that's been virtualized. And the cloud is still about 10 years behind what we actually had 20 years ago. First cloud I worked on was 20 years ago. And I'm sorry, it was longer than that, 1996. I'm getting old. Next cloud was in 1998. The next cloud was in 2000. There was a different cloud in 2001. So B. Spence, when your fundamentals are strong, it's all new. You know, Cisco invented the VLAN 30, 40 years ago. Then VMware invented the virtual machine, similar concept. Cisco invented the private VLAN back in 2000 or so. All of a sudden we have a container, same concept. So as RFC 1925 from the Internet Engineering Task Force says, everything gets reinvented. So all this cloud stuff is 25 to 30-year-old technology, all of it. It's now a software-based version of the same hardware as we think. So basement, if you build strong fundamentals, you're always going to know. Because when you know how things work, even if they change by 2%, it's like, yeah, kind of like the way when I used to practice medicine, we didn't just learn a drug. We learned the family of drugs. And that way, for example, if we were dealing with, say, a macrolide antibiotic, I'm just using a concept, didn't matter if it was azithromycin, erythromycin, Biaxin, same drug. They work a little differently, but for the most part, they're the same. So when you learn the fundamentals, then all you've got to do is nothing to keep carrying. And basically, you just see, okay, new stuff, new stuff, new stuff. Okay, yep, worked with this 20 years ago. Yep, worked with this 10 years ago.
All
Like the
right.
Who song, meet the new boss, same as the old boss.
All right, so our next question comes from Philip. It says, I'm a SQL developer and my expertise are all around databases and data warehousing. I just want to do it on the cloud. Do you have training for Azure Data Factory and Azure Synapse Analytics? I'm going to say no, that we don't have training specifically for those.
And I'm going to say, if you really want to learn big data, data science, and all these things, those two things may be 1.5% of the entire industry. And if you think that just learning that would get you any job in big data, no. If you're going to be really dealing with big data, you better understand, the big data concepts, data lakes, the creation of data lakes, the cataloging of the data, the manipulation of the data, the mapping and reduction of the data. You need to understand the tools that are there, because you said database. So, I don't know whether you're used to PyTorch, TensorFlow, and all these machine learning libraries. I don't know if you're used to training models. I don't know if you're used to presenting these data. So just studying those two things, really not going to do much for you if you want to work in big data. Now, maybe you're already doing these things. And if you are, read the Microsoft documentation in Azure Data Factory and Azure Synaptic Analytics, because that's going to give you far more training than you're ever going to get on a course. You're going to hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. But understand, just learning a service on a cloud, it's nothing. You need to understand how all this stuff works, why to use it. It's kind of like an airplane pilot saying, hey, can you just teach me this one button? I want to know just this button. What's this new button made by Lockheed Martin? You need to learn to fly the whole plane. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. That is one component of the entire career. And the reason I'm saying this is people get stuck. Like, I remember somebody years ago, they're like, Mike, I want to learn this EIGRP routing protocol. And I said, yeah, so what about OSPF, BGP, intermediate system? They're like, I only want to learn EIGRP. And I said, well, then I can't do anything with you. And they're like, what? I said, well, I can't put you in a position where you're never going to be able to do the job by having one tool. It's like a carpenter that only knows how to use a hammer, not a nail, or driver, or screwdriver, or whatever tools the construction workers use. I don't know. They amaze me in how they build stuff, but I don't know anything about it.
All right. So next question. I'm going to start off on this one. So Aisha says, organizations sometimes want cloud architect to perform jobs of cloud engineers. I was in an organization and their cloud architect trainee was asked to learn Terraform.
He wasn't an architect.
It's possible that they just put a title on somebody and yeah. I mean, so here's the thing about the rule. The general rule, you're never going to hear about examples of the general rule.
No.
You're always going to hear examples and see examples of the exceptions to the general rule.
Right.
The general rule is that cloud architects don't get bogged down in the tech. But you're not always going to hear about that. You're always going to hear about the examples of people that are the exception. So, and it's always possible. Who knows? The company, that might be the company's practice to make their cloud engineers do the tech. That's the company's prerogative.
Yeah.
It may not work out the best for them. Maybe it does, but that's that company. So the general rule is that cloud architects don't touch the tech. If they do touch the tech, it's under cloud engineer supervision, most likely.
Right. Yeah.
But you always hear the examples, and we lost Alonzo because he had a storm rolling in, so Mike and I were prepared for that. But yeah, you just and you're also sorry. I just noticed I have a picture frame hanging off the wall being held up by a tree, so that's dangerous. Sorry. You're always gonna have some companies that try to get everything they can out of the least amount possible. It's the nature of the business. And you also have companies that will give people titles that don't necessarily reflect their responsibilities. And it's not just related to cloud careers or tech careers. This is everywhere, every industry, in every part of the world, at every level. People are going to give people, companies will give people titles that are not reflective of what those titles traditionally mean. Just because that's how that company handles things. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty sure this company asked this person to learn Terraform. I mean, Mike was asked to learn I can't remember what it was that you were asked to learn in his previous career, and it cost the company millions of dollars because they asked him to do something that wasn't part of his job as the general rule. And so once he did it, it had disastrous effects. But sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes there are immediate effects. Sometimes there's effects that you don't see until years down the road. But I'd love to hear what Mike has to add to that.
No, yeah, I'm going to add 3 things to that. Aisha, anytime there's touching the technology, it's an engineering job, not an architect job. Chris and I received a call from a principal architect at Microsoft a few weeks ago, and he wanted us to do some kind of a thing with him. I don't really want to get into it right now, but he said, look, here's the thing. There's one common thing amongst all architects. We never touch the technology. And yeah, that's really the key. Now, Aisha, 20 years ago, a little more than this, the chief information officer of a financial company asked me to go learn how to write a bash shell script. And I remember saying to him, I said, you know, a minute of downtime costs millions of dollars. I'm your lead architect. Do you really want me to learn somebody else's job like engineering? And this wasn't a really interesting guy. He says, Michael, you're going to go there. So they sent me there, and I was like, okay. Steak, Silver Oak, got $50 shots of scotch. I was going to enjoy myself. It wasn't a banking thing. I get back. They all hug me. And they're like, Mike, when you were gone, we had all these outages. And I said, what are you talking about? They're like, we had this outage cost $50 million plus while you were gone. I will never, the CIO was fired. 20 years later, he has the job of an intro-level tech person in management, like somebody with 1 year experience, not 30 years experience. And I was allowed to be an architect. And that was the last time anybody asked me to do something so silly like that in my entire career. You can't fly the plane and keep the patients in the seats. And Aisha, the second you do engineering, which is focusing on the tech, what are you not focusing on anymore? Improving your customer's business performance, which means you may be a good engineer, but you're a horrible architect. So imagine the doctor that decided not to see their patients. They just decided to be a nurse at the hospital and do a handoff stuff. Or the pilot that said, I'm not flying this plane anymore. I'm going to go make drinks for the people in first class. You can't do 2 jobs at once and actually survive them. Something's got to give.
All right. So for all of those out there that think that I might cherry pick questions, this next question is definitely disproves that theory. BNHG asks, will GoCloud architects soon offer a certification? Oh boy. I don't want this question, but it came up, so we'll answer it. Mike?
VNHG, we're in the process of thinking about it, and here's the reason. There is no paper exam that will ever be valid for a cloud architect. Because the job of a cloud architect is design, present, and sell, specifically to C-level executives. If we do it, it's going to be a real exam, like the Cisco Certified Internet Expert. It will have an 80+% failure rate because people that we're going to certify, if we do it, are going to be experts. And it will involve, if we do it, everything from talking about the business requirements, where the person will have to listen and take notes, designing an actual solution, documenting the solution intelligently, and presenting it to technical and non-technical people, if we choose to do it. And the reality is, to do an exam like that, we're going to have some C-level executives in the room. And it can't be cheap because we're going to be dealing with people that earn very high salaries. But that's the only way you could actually do a certification. Yes, we are considering it. We've had other big organizations approach us and ask if we would do it with them, because they know that all the other certifications are basically completely irrelevant. But we're still thinking about it. And it's too early to sell. We have to build a business case around it to see if there's a big enough audience that wants it, and to really think about how many resources it would do to do it right. Because we will never offer a worthless anything. Everything we do is about excellence and about building elite careers. So if we do it, it's going to be something major and substantial, but we are considering it.
All right. Next question is from CC Lemon. Do you consider bringing other experienced cloud architects to the show, like your coworker in Cisco? I know you have invited your students and hiring managers in the past. Yeah. It's just the most difficult thing that we have with our scheduling is with our show is the scheduling. It's just it's difficult to get people, and we've actually had some people scheduled that we've had to change at the last second because of the nature of people's availability. So yeah, that it's we're always open. We're always looking for new people to bring onto the channel. So
we are, and we do periodically, but CC Lemon, what we bring on more importantly, which is more of what you need to hear, because our team, we're all architects, is I've brought in multiple chief executive officers for people to learn business acumen. I've got about 15 more CEOs lined up for conversations. I just don't have the voice to talk to them right now. And yeah, we're always going to be bringing in business leaders and other key people.
All right. Next question is from Bliss. What is the difference between Azure Cloud Security Architect and AWS Cloud Security Architect?
Nothing.
Nothing at all.
Bliss,
the names is what's different.
See, here's the thing, Bliss. All that AWS and Azure security stuff you can't use in a big data and big environment anyway. So you'll be using the same firewalls from Palo Alto, Fortinet, Checkpoint, same intrusion detection, intrusion prevention systems, same ways you're going to lock down hosts, the same identity and access management systems, which are typically going to be Active Directory. You're going to be doing the same thing in every cloud. Those cloud native security services aren't good enough for major enterprises. I just want you to think about this. Bliss, have you ever seen a Swiss Army knife? It's this little red thing that's got a mini screwdriver and a can opener on it, and a little scissors and a nail clipper, a nail file. It does a lot of things, but nothing well. You can think about that as the cloud security services. And then have you ever seen a military tactical knife with the things like 6 inches of steel? That's the Palo Alto or the Cisco firewall. So keep it in mind that what you're going to do as a real security architect is identical in every single cloud. And guess what? It's going to be the same thing as that you do in the data center too. It's just now they're going to be virtualized.
All right. So our next question is from Omar. What steps can you take to become emotionally intelligent?
Omar, this is a big training component here. Now, to be fair, I've got about $250,000 of training, and at least $100,000 of it is in an emotional intelligence training. Emotional intelligence is about learning to control your emotions as well as managing other people's emotions. So, I learned a lot of it learning to practice medicine, because you can't tell somebody you've got cancer, hey, you got cancer, ha, 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 ha. You got to learn how to relate to them and be empathetic. See, we teach all of these in our program, but if not, make sure you get some empathy training. Make sure you get some soft skills training. Make sure you get emotional intelligence training. And this training is expensive, Omar. That's why we created our course, because we know most people can't afford to spend $5,000-$10,000 on empathy training, and another $5,000 or $10,000 on emotional intelligence training, and another $5,000 to $10,000 on soft skills training. But you can do that, and we recommend it. The Goldman Group has got some good emotional intelligence training. We like what they do. So there's that. So kind of keep these things in the back of your mind, that it's about learning how to connect with others, learning how to make others feel good in your presence, learning how to be more empathetic to people and seeing things from other people's perspectives, and then really getting the training. I learned it more in medicine than I did in all these other trainings, because I used to practice internal medicine. But what steps you can take? Learn to control your emotions. Meditation, yoga, cognitive behavior therapy, special types of breathing. That's one part of it. 2 is learning how to connect with others. 3 is the soft skills development. 4 is the empathy training. And then 5 is actually the emotional intelligence training, which ties the pieces and parts together. You'll do great, by the way. Great, by the way. And we could train you, or you can train it in those matters. I really don't care. I just want you to have the most elite career, but definitely work on your emotional intelligence. People with higher levels of emotional intelligence on average earn $30,000 more per year. So even if you spent $50,000 to learn emotional intelligence, over the 30-year career, you're going to earn $1 million more. So imagine that. Now, our training is $1,000 or less. So imagine the $30,000 extra for the rest of your life. So keep that in the back of your mind. But that's how you develop it. I don't care where you develop it. I just want you to develop it. It'll change your life.
All right. So just to remind everybody, we will be wrapping up here soon. So we'll be answering the questions that have already been received in the chat box. So our next question is, I was wondering if the AWS training is enough to pass the SAA CO2. I'm on part 2 right now. So I don't believe the SAA CO2 is offered anymore. I think it's a CO3 now. Is that correct, Mike?
Yes.
Yeah.
We have training for that.
Yeah.
And yes, our training is enough to pass it. Absolutely. We've had many, many, many people pass that exam with just our training, but you will always hear us recommend a practice test. For practice exams, we recommend review and prep because they make good exams. We also have a book that we recommend you read, Humza. And the other thing that we recommend is that Andrew Brown also has some free training out there on YouTube, and we find his training to be excellent. So I would use all 3 to get there, but definitely get a practice test, because the exam isn't challenging, but the way they ask the questions is so hard. And by the way, they use all these proprietary names and all these other things. I think it would be very good for you. And you'll be there.
All right. So next question is from Garesh. Got a couple of questions back to back. What are the practicals we will go through as part of the course? And what are all offered from GoCloud team after taking the course, other than providing access to recorded videos?
So Garesh, the first thing is, I think you're confusing an architect and an engineer. Practical for an architect is learning how to design, present it, and sell it back to the customer. So in our program, you will be involved in designing architectures and learning how to document them every single week. That's what we do as architects. You'll learn how to design it, present it, and sell it. Architects do not touch the technology in their job. So if we spend our time learning engineering, you'd be a great engineer but not be hired. So we do hands-on for one reason. So you can tell the hiring managers that you have experience doing it. And that's why we want our students to wait approximately until they're 50% through the course before they actually start the practicals. It doesn't have to be exactly 50, but we want people to understand the architecture long before they worry about touching the tech. Because in your job as an architect, you're never going to touch it. I've been an architect for 25 years now. The last time I touched anything in tech was over 20 years ago. Like when Yvonne Tamba, who works at AWS, came and said he's not even allowed to touch the customer's network. He's not even allowed to touch the cloud because he's a solution architect working for AWS. So the practical part is you will learn how to present, you will learn how to sell, you will learn how to design, and you're going to be doing that in front of others. You will learn how to lead large teams, and you will learn how to lead teams in the design of a solution. Now, you will basically do all the AWS labs that you would need to do for the AWS certifications and all the Azure ones. Now, the real tech stuff that we do is the stuff that you have to understand. Is we'll have you work in our data center and work with server virtualization the hard way with VMware, build containers, build firewalls, build file servers, Linux file servers, Windows file servers, Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP stacks. We'll have you building Active Directory servers, and you'll actually build your own cloud. But remember, we're only doing that so when the hiring manager says yes, have you built the cloud? You can say, yes, I have. Have you worked with this? Yes, I have. Remember, in our job, we do not touch the technology. We design it, present it, and sell it. So we have live classes 3 times per week. And in these live classes, 2 of them, you're going to learn how to design the architectures, and you will participate in designing them. Participate in designing them. Now, the next part of that goes is the leadership classes we do once a week too. So we're going to teach you everything that you need to learn to be a great architect, and that's why our students get hired pretty much every day of the week. But it's not engineering that we're doing. We're doing architecture work. I just want to make sure that you understand that engineers and architects are very, very, very different careers. And we teach you exactly the architect piece.
All right. So as I said, at 11, we will be wrapping up soon. So we'll be taking the questions that had already come into the chat box prior to that so that we can wrap up. All right. So from Elizabeth James, we got 2 parts. Hi, Mike and Chris. Follow up with the question that I asked on Monday about getting a degree to help further my career, and you recommended a degree in management. I've done some research on that. Came across entrepreneurship and enterprise management, human resources management, logistics operations, and supply management. What type of management should I look more into? Oh boy. So here's the thing. This is coming from, I'm going to talk about my experience and I'll let Mike talk about it. The more words that are associated with the name of the degree, the less you should consider it.
Yes.
So if it's got entrepreneurship and international management, that's 1, 2, I'm counting the ampersand as a word. 1, 2, 3, 4 words. And human resources management, logistics, that's 4 words. Operations and supply management, 4 words. Try to find one that's got 2 words. Like business management, operations management. Yeah, that's it's so universities do the same thing that cloud service providers do. They obfuscate their degrees to make them sound better. And so that's what you want to do is you want to look at the curriculum, the requirements to be completed to earn that degree, and see what courses are required and see if those courses have any relationship to meeting a business's goals and managing operations and managing people. Because all the ones that you just listed are very specific. And so they would be too, it's almost like cloud engineering versus cloud architect at that point.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it at that. And I'll let Mike add his 2 cents.
I think Chris answered that perfectly. If I could find one that says management, that would be my one.
Yep.
If not, it would be business management. The less words, the less possible. We're looking for generic, not specific here.
Yep.
But I definitely wouldn't do HR anything.
No.
And truthfully, I wouldn't do anything entrepreneurship because at universities, most of the professors don't know anything about entrepreneurship, or they would be running their own businesses. And enterprise management, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, I don't know how entrepreneurship and enterprise management are in the same thing.
Yeah.
Because an entrepreneur is not starting with an enterprise.
No.
So, all right. Trying to wrap up here. So we've got Mike, I work at DocuSign in a tech sales role. Nice. Sales is
Sure.
nice. I've just graduated from university. Not familiar with what degree you have. Do you think these skills would be transferable to become a cloud architect?
Highly.
Yes.
Because what we're doing is selling that, and selling is 30% of the job. You will have a much easier time coming from a sales role than if you actually came from an engineering role. So yes, highly, highly transferable.
Yeah.
And I remember working with lots of salespeople, and they're my favorite to work with because they typically have half of what it takes to do the job. Then we just need to fill in the technical gap. So yes, hugely transferable skill.
All right. Nine says, I'm a senior network security engineer. I want to move into cloud engineer. Any specifics where I should start?
Sure. Well, Nine, if you are a network security engineer and you wanted to be a cloud security engineer, you're already perfectly trained for it. I'm going to tell you that right now. Same job on the cloud versus off the cloud. Now, if you want to go from security engineering, which is dealing with firewalls and IDS, IPS systems, access controller lists on layer 2 and layer 3, and things like 802.1x and all these other cool things, remember, that's security. Once you get to the cloud, you're going to realize that the cloud engineers are not architects. The architects design, present, and sell. The engineers are the builder. So now you're going to need to learn servers and server virtualization and containers and container orchestration and block storage, object storage, and file storage, databases, load balancers, the applications that are actually used in business. The good news, if you have network security engineer, hopefully you've got some knowledge of BGP and OSPF and those kind of things, which I'm going to assume you actually do. But because you're an engineer versus an architect, you'll need to learn Python, and you'll need to learn Linux to almost the Linux engineer level. You'll need to learn infrastructure as code as a cloud engineer, for example. And you're going to need to get really good and hands-on with the clouds themselves, at the CLI and also Terraform, because you're going to use infrastructure as code. So those would be the things that you would use. Going from a network security engineer in the data center to a network security engineer on the cloud, very easy to do. And truth be told, you'll probably earn more doing that than you actually would by becoming a cloud engineer, because it's more specialized. But if you want to become a cloud engineer, that's exactly what you need to learn.
All right. So that was the last question for today. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. I hope we were able to answer some of your questions, and definitely look forward to working with you in the future. So I want to make sure that everybody is aware of the webinar that we have tomorrow, our free How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar. In this webinar, we'll share with you everything from why we created our program to what experience actually matters, to what hiring managers want, what a cloud architect actually is, how to deal with HR and those crazy job descriptions, and then, of course, exactly what you need to do and how we can help you become the ultimate cloud architect. So make sure to join us on that webinar. The link will be in the description and in the chat box. And then, of course, for the remainder of this week, ending on Friday, we have our 35% off Cyber Monday sale that is eligible on our Cloud Architect Career Development Program Plus, and that's available for our payment plans as well. So make sure to take advantage of the webinar that we've got tomorrow and the Cyber Monday discount that we've got going on. Again, want to thank everybody for joining us, and I hope that y'all have a great day. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you all. Take
All
care,
right.
everyone.